Hi, I'm Dr. Russ, and this is Unit 11, Draft the Conclusion. Well, you've written the introduction and the body to the paper. There's only one part left to write, and that's the conclusion. So let's see how that's done. In this video, we'll learn what the conclusion is and what it does. We'll look at a three-step process for writing the conclusion, and we'll talk about what should not go in the conclusion. We'll look at some common things that people do to weaken their conclusion and discuss that a little bit so that you don't weaken your conclusion. And then we'll go over this week's assignment. The goal for this week is on your own, you'll be able to draft the concluding paragraphs for a paper using an outline. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is the final paragraph of the paper. A strong conclusion ties together the paper's main points. It shows why your argument matters. That is, it answers the so what, who cares questions. And it leaves the reader with a strong impression. The conclusion should give a sense of closure and completion to the paper. In other words, it lets the reader know that the paper is finished. It also shows what new questions or possibility the paper has opened up in case anybody wants to explore the topic further in the future. So the three-step process for writing a conclusion is return to the thesis, review the main points, and show why it matters. Let's look at each of those steps. Step 1, return to the thesis. To begin the conclusion, show that your paper is coming to an end by returning to your overall argument. Note we use the word return rather than repeat. Don't just repeat your thesis statement. Rather, keeping your thesis statement in mind, try to rephrase your argument in a way that shows how it has been developed since the introduction. For example, Braille paved the way for dramatic cultural changes in the way blind people were treated and the opportunities available to them. So that reflects the thesis statement, but it's not an exact copy of the thesis statement because it reflects all the things we've done in the paper. Step 2, review the main points of your paper. The conclusion is your final chance to show how all the paragraphs of the paper add up to a coherent whole. Remind the reader of the main points that you use to support your argument. Avoid simply summarizing each paragraph or repeating each point in order. Rather, state the points together in a way that makes the connections between them clear. For example, Louis Braille's innovation was to reimagine existing reading systems from a blind perspective, and the success of this invention required sighted teachers to adapt their students' reality instead of the other way around. In this sense, Braille helped drive broader social changes in the status of blindness. So that's all very concise. It sums up the paper, but it doesn't restate everything. Step 3 shows why it matters. Finish your your conclusion by considering the implications of the paper. So what? Who cares? Does this paper contribute to a new understanding of your topic? Does it raise new questions for future study? Does it lead to practical suggestions or predictions? Can it be applied in different contexts? That is, could somebody read your paper and use its ideas with different people, different places, or different situations? And can it be connected to a broader debate or theme? Try to end with a strong, decisive sentence, leaving the reader with a continuing sense of interest in your topic. Let's look at an example. New accessibility tools provide practical advantage to those who need them, but they can also change the perspectives and attitudes of those who do not. Okay, what should we not include in the conclusion? First of all, don't include any new evidence. Any evidence or analysis that is essential to supporting your thesis and statement should already appear in the main body of your essay. The conclusion should not introduce any major news sources or ideas that the reader is going to need further explanation to understand. Also, don't use what we call concluding phrases, like obvious phrases that tell the reader that you're done. In conclusion, or to sum up. It's the last paragraph of the paper. They know you're done. And returning to the main argument in the conclusion will signal to your reader that you are concluding the paper. And don't weaken your conclusion. You've done all this research and all this thinking to write the paper. That makes you almost a kind of an expert. So have courage. Don't use phrases that sound uncertain or confused. This is just one approach of many. There are good arguments on both sides of this issue. There is no clear answer to this problem. Those three statements just make it sound like you've written this big paper, and yet you're not even certain if what you've said is right. When there's a topic out there, there's lots of different approaches. In a composition class, if your professor says, write about this, and there's 20 of you, those 20 papers will probably be different unless somebody copied somebody else's paper. Leave the reader with the impression that you think the approach you used is the best one. Okay, let's look at the assignment. You can demonstrate that you can draft the conclusion for the paper. So how do you write the conclusion? Take a moment to review your thesis statement and the main points from your outline. Think about why this paper should matter to the reader. Ask yourself, so what? Who cares? Now you're ready to write the concluding paragraph. Be sure to restate the thesis, tie together the main points, and show why the paper matters. Then submit the assignment to your instructor. So, how will we evaluate your conclusion? We'll make sure that the paragraph restates the thesis. We'll check to see that the paragraph ties together the main points. We'll look to see if you showed why the paper matters. And we'll also make sure you submitted the assignment by the due date. If you have any questions, ask your lab assistant or your instructor.